this rebuttal, I will briefly summarize the points made by our colleagues. You have heard the conclusions, and here's a synopsis of our main points. Phil and Martina did a great job showing you how foolish passing the proposal would be. Martina discussed it being a hobby. She also talked about the countless studies and examples that demonstrate how people's mental issues are born from other reasons other than the use of violent video games. As an avid gamer, Mr. Garman said, "Video games cannot affect people if there is nothing to be affected." Martina explains the cost of enforcing the sales of these games and how there is no way to keep track of the games' purchases. Phil talked about the sales and resales of the video games and all the loopholes around buying mature games, including how one can buy online with a credit card or through red box outlets. He also touched on how it's the First Amendment, your freedom of speech, and the direct correlation that businesses should be able to sell what they see fit. Lastly, Phil Strong's argument focuses on parental rights and to have control of what their children are watching. If parents think that violent video games have an effect on their children's brains, then let them have the ability and right to tell their children no and why it's not okay in their own household. Parents should be able to enforce their own beliefs and not the government. Now I will rebut some of the poorly represented statements my opponents have made. First, I'd like to point out that Kai's statement about negative effects on the violent video games have on kids is irrelevant. Negative physical issues can result from a variety of causes, such as non-violent video games, watching too much TV, or even struggling with homework on the computer, so I do not see how that corresponds with our debate. Josh brought up how video games correlate to behavioral issues later on in life, but according to Christopher Ferguson of Stenson University and independent researcher Cheryl Olson, there is no found association between playing of video games and bullying or depression in children, and definitely not in mass shootings. They studied over 377 American children from different socioeconomic and ethnic groups. They also incorporated children with various levels of ADD and depression. Their vast amounts of research findings from both sides concluded that we really cannot predict or say it's proven that video games have anything to do with affecting a person's mind. Like my colleague Phil said, so many people, especially young men, playing violent video games that it is unusual for some not to be playing them. In the beginning of Josh's debate, he pointed out many flaws that the ESRB has. That is exactly our point. Some companies may lie about the content of the video games in fear that their products will only be available to smaller range of buyers, thus making it difficult to sell their video games. In addition, some games are wrongly assessed, and parents might have a misinterpretation of what the game's contents really is. For instance, the Beatles Rock Band game is rated T for teen, but do you really need to be 13 or older to be playing this game? It seems irrational to have a flawed system evaluating video games contents for all ages and Americans. And federalizing this isn't going to help it. It is as simple as our alternative plan. The ESRB will have a warning system so that parents can still see what is on the video games, and companies will be more willing to release all the game's contents, giving the government no authority to choose what is right or wrong for children to be playing. On game consoles, there are parental controls that can be set so even when a parent is not around, their video viewing rules are still enforced. In conclusion, my colleagues and I do not in any way concur with this proposal. Be it resolved that Congress federalizes the ESRB in regards to age restrictions on video games. For a moment, just think what the ESRB really has to offer, which are false ratings and the elimination of parental rights to choose what they want their kids watching. Let's use common sense. In their homes, parents are there to judge and decide what is appropriate for their young, susceptible children to watch. And if parents don't care or are not taking responsibilities to monitor what their children are watching, then there is clearly something else that is an issue in that household that needs to be addressed. Thank you.